I'm making this video as a follow-up to the first video I just previously made. I'll leave a link to that video in the comment section below. I wanted to go into more detail of how I constructed an overbalanced wheel using 2 fidget spinners and some metal plates. The name of this wheel is called a Bhaskaras wheel, named after an Indian inventor and mathematician. I wanted to build my own from parts I could find locally and on a smaller scale to see if I could repeat some of the results that he got. The first idea I had was to use the bearings on a fidget spinner and base my project off of that. Next, I went to the dollar store and found some metal serving plates I could modify to use as my hub. This is what I started with and just bought parts to make things work from there on. In total, I spent about $35 to build the completed wheel. The first step was to make my wheel. My plan was to use 2 fidget spinners, one on the front and one on the back of each plate. For the first step, I needed to drill some holes through both metal plates, matching the hole pattern in the fidget spinner. I found the center of each plate and scribed a bolt circle on the plate. I then took my vernier and found the centers so I could mark my centers on the plate. After my holes were drilled, I bought some nuts and bolts from Home Depot and screwed the plates together. This gap between the plates was perfect to allow me to attach bottles with zip ties later in the project. Next, I needed to attach some guide pins to each spinner that would allow me to hold the wheel on a frame and allow it to spin freely. I bought these fidget spinners for $1 each, so I didn't have much to work with. I then bought 2 1/4-inch screws with large flat heads and crazy glued them, one on each face of the wheel. For the frame, I had some leftover 1/2-inch diameter copper pipe in my closet. I cut 2 pieces about 10 inches long and drilled 2 1/4-inch clearance holes through each one. For my base, I used 2 pieces of pine so it was wide enough to give me enough stability. I doubled up on the thickness so it was thick enough to support the weight of the wheel without flexing. The next step was to find bottles that would be suitable for the size of the wheel. I ended up finding these traveler bottles at the dollar store that were the perfect size and shape. With my 2 plates still screwed together, I divided the hub into 8 equal parts. I then drilled holes for each location in 8 places so that my zip ties would fit right through the holes. I filled each bottle using a graduated cylinder with 35 milliliters of water. I had some difficulty having the bottle stay tied to the hub. I had to be cautious not to over tighten each bottle as it would start to warp or separate the plates by doing so. I found that by forcing the zip tie around the neck of the bottle underneath the cap, the bottle stayed tight to the hub. This is the final result of the builds. It's very easy for anyone to repeat this with some simple tools. I was fortunate to have bought a small used bench-sized drill press for about $30. And it is very handy in creating projects like this. I'll admit, however, that the wheel doesn't spin to perfection, as I constructed it in my office with limited tools. So how does it work? My first trial was with pure water. I spun the wheel about 3 times to get a sense of how far it would travel. For my second trial, I added about a tablespoon of salt to each bottle. And the theory here is that the heavier the liquid in the bottles, the more force it will have to spin the wheel and achieve perpetual motion. I also added some green food coloring for effect. After spinning the wheel 4 times, I could see no improvement whatsoever in how far I could get the wheel to spin. In all honesty, I really wanted this to work, but it doesn't. And you could further argue that my wheel isn't perfectly balanced, adding more resistance and preventing it from spinning freely. Further experiments are needed to completely disqualify this idea. It's possible that I try this experiment again with a perfectly balanced bicycle wheel to further disprove or prove it. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about this. I'd like to hear your comments. I'd like to hear if any of you have experimented with any of this and the results that you've had. From my experience and from what I see, it just does not work. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please leave your comments in the section below.